Hello everybody, I'm M, and welcome to Green Screen Entertainment. So, since the creation of my fire characters list, I've been thinking about fire's opposite. Where fire is hot and made of plasma, ice is cold and can very well break your bones. Thing is, ice may be made of water, but compared to water, ice's uses in media have been very different. Very different.
Solid and freezing, this element has been at odds with fire for as long as I can remember. The criteria of this list has been slightly altered from the previous one. The character's design must reflect ice through colors or motifs, and ice must be used in at least half of the character's arsenal. Their personality should also reflect ice to some degree, whether it be the soothing cold of an ice pack after a burn, or the blistering blizzards of below zero. Try saying that 5 times fast. Also, I'll try to keep this list to 1 per franchise. No promises though. Oh yeah, and spoiler alert for all the characters on this list, you have been warned.
So, I'll admit, when I started coming up with characters for this list, I forgot this guy even existed. Sure, he was the first villain of the series, so it does make sense that he'd be a little more forgettable. At the same time, he was so deeply embroiled in other pivotal events and plot points that would later become important, I'm surprised we didn't see more of this guy. In the end, I have to come to a choice. And this is that choice. Ladies and gentlemen, number 10, Isaac the Freezer, a Full Metal Alchemist.
In centuries past, alchemists tried to turn lead into gold with little success. In the nation of Amestris, however, alchemy has a slightly different definition. Alchemists are people who use the tectonic energy of the planet to manipulate matter with transmutation circles, and Isaac McDougal was one of those alchemists. Well, he was one of those alchemists specifically in Brotherhood, but I am not kicking that hornet's nest today. After the Ishvalan War came to a close, Isaac resigned his military position and went into hiding. Not long after, he began to work against the government because of the horrors he was forced to commit in the field of war. Specifically, he hated his leader, the Führer King, Bradley. Not the most intimidating name in the world, but his reputation far precedes him. Anyway, Isaac's resolve was cold, wanting nothing more than to put a stop to the madman with a dangerous secret. As a state alchemist, Isaac's alchemy was something more of a dangerous beauty to behold. Specifically, he specialized in water-based alchemy, developing a way to freeze it and use it to attack. With his mastery of the laws of alchemy, he can flash freeze people and certain objects on physical contact, freezing and defrosting water in the blink of an eye. He would be an absolute nightmare in the winter, and winter's already a pain enough as it is. He can build on this further with his infinite ice transmutation, which can cover the streets of an entire city. Isaac is unique in that he's the first major antagonist that the Elric brothers fight. But looking back through the show, if Isaac had stuck around, he may have become something of an ally. With his ties to the war, his singular hatred of Führer King Bradley, who would later be discovered as a twist villain, and his sense that he was doing something right.
Don't be a fool! He'll lead us all to ruin! I'm only doing what needs to be done!
Isaac could have been one of the better characters that FMA had to offer. Sadly, he only appeared in 1 episode at the start of the series, and as a result, his character is only really explored at a surface level, used to hint at the larger story being told, before he's killed off by Führer King Bradley. And like I said before, I forgot about him until this list creation, so he didn't leave as much of an impact on me. But considering that the Elric brothers and their allies eventually find themselves in a similar position to him later on, yeah, I think it's worth giving him the number 10 spot.
A long, long time ago, in a land that would eventually become known as Unova.
Look, we've been through this song and dance once before. Ancient Unova region, original dragon Pokemon, split into Reshiram and Zekrom for truth and ideals, and the old husk of the original body is what's left, and it's what's on the list. Can we please move it along, people? Thank you.
That's weird. I feel like I just got Malcolm in the Middle. Alright, well, assuming that I was, I guess I'll just abridge it. I'll just abridge what I was going to say.
In Black and White, Reshiram and Zekrom were awakened, but it wasn't until the sequels, Black 2 and White 2, where the number 9 entry of this list, Kyurem, came into play. Kyurem is believed to be what remained of the body of the original dragon that fled to the giant chasm after the split. Since the ice on its face and wing things look asymmetrical, I think that hints at the ice typing being something that was added over time and due to the heat of the other two being ripped away. Its Pokédex entry in Black states that it generates a powerful freezing energy inside itself, and I think that was formed in the absence of warmth, formerly created by Truth and Ideals. It has become one with the cold, hitting hard with good physical and special attack. There are a lot of ice moves it can use, like Ice Beam, Avalanche, or Frost Breath, but its signature move, which is one of the only Pokemon moves that we get to see in the overworld, is Glaciate, which freezes the victim and spears them with several massive icicles! It's so strong, it was later used to power a massive blatant ice cannon on the underside of Team Plasma's ship that froze over a city. Deja vu. While I don't really care for the anime appearance in Keldeo and the Swords of Justice, his manga appearance has me interested. Kyurem never has any defining personality traits, it just acts as cold and lifeless as the snowy tundra. Sure, it gave Colress the ultimate cold shoulder at the end, but it simply wants to be left alone in the giant chasm, with no emotion to be had, just an urge to be alone. Perhaps solitude is one of the coldest and harshest things of all. Almost makes me sad for him. The only reason he's so low is that he doesn't really have much of a personality, or anything when it comes to thought, or emotion, or introspection. He has the very basic segments of character, but it's enough to make him interesting. At least more interesting, slightly, than Isaac the Freezer. So yeah, Kyurem is placed at number 9. Victor Fries was a brilliant cryogenicist. He had a beautiful wife, a successful career. What more could he want? But as they say, nothing good can last forever. His wife Nora became terminally ill, and in response, Victor put her in suspended animation. This would buy him time until he eventually learned of a way to cure her. However, in another stroke of ill fate, the company that funded Victor's work began to shut everything down. But during this shutdown, there was an accident that released chemical coolants in Victor's lab. Under normal circumstances, he would have been frozen to death. But this is the world of DC Comics, where the laws of physics are not only bent, they're broken, stretched, and knitted into a lovely holiday sweater.
It's crocheting! One active needle! Were you born in a barn?
At that moment, Victor Fries became someone else entirely, while retaining his love for his wife Nora. He became Mr. Freeze. It is said that Victor's heart grew 3 sizes that day, and then shrank 4 and promptly iced over to the point that no mercy would ever show. With a new outlook on life, Freeze began his career as a criminal of Gotham. He developed his freeze gun, which can freeze you in place, obviously. It can blast you with icicles, or just up and freeze an entire city block, because why not? The gun apparently works by drawing moisture from the air and blasting it in a stream that freezes instantly. Infinite ammo for your gun is a nice perk in exchange for having your body and mind fundamentally altered. Mr. Freeze's suit keeps his body at freezing temperatures, and outside of his suit, he could theoretically survive in the harshest of cold climates. Although if he boils at room temperature, really what's the point? Yet, through it all, Victor's desire to help his wife remains. All of his crimes, all of his machinations, all of his work with other villains, it's all to help find a way for his wife to be revived and cured of her unnamed lethal disease. Freeze is another example of a tragic villain formed through obsession with a singular goal. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? To the point where he would commit heinous crimes to complete those goals. Once again, I can't help but feel sorry for him. A character that can invoke an emotional response is a good sign of writing in my book. The only reason he's so low is because the other characters embody ice better than he does, in my opinion, and I don't have as much of a connection with him as I do the other characters on the list, but he certainly does not disappoint. Oh yeah, the ice puns he made in the Batman and Robin movie were just lame.
The Iceman cometh!
Oh, you stink!
In the world of Remnant, there are very few things that aren't out to kill you. Demented monsters attracted to negative emotion called Grimm, terrorists with animal parts called the White Fang, and even sometimes the people themselves. The northernmost region of Solitas is arguably the most dangerous with its perpetually freezing temperatures and the mostly untamed wilderness. But if there's one person in that whole place who can put you on ice, it'd be Weiss Schnee. Raised in the floating city of Atlas, Weiss was born into a rich family, and grew up with a cold father and shall we say, depressed mother.
The only thing gassed up in that Jeep was us.
Eventually, she decided she had had enough and wanted to strike out on her own and become a huntress. To do that, she would need more than a fancy snow-themed outfit. To that end, she began to wield Myrtenaster, a rapier with a revolving chamber of elemental rounds. While she does use other elements, her go-to move is ice attacks. Icy pistol shots are handy, but when she needs to get serious, she creates massive swaths of icy spikes to trap or straight-up attack enemies. Her impromptu ice cliffs can also serve as ramps or pathways for her teammates. Weiss also has unlocked her Semblance, a unique power that huntsmen and huntresses can wield. In her case, there were glyphs. Almost all of them look like a snowflake. Nice touch. But with them, she can do all sorts of crazy stuff, including, but not limited to, summoning frosty versions of enemies she's defeated, with her go-to summon being the Armagigas. Honestly, seeing her and Armagigas fight together is always a treat. But if Weiss's ice attacks won't freeze you, her personality certainly will. When she was first introduced, I admit I thought she was gonna be a one-note jerk.
Quiet, you!
She was always so cold towards everybody and anything that attempted to be friendly towards her, and generally just acted like a frosty, spoiled brat. But over time, she eventually softened up, learning to be nicer to her teammates and instead directing her cold fury at her opponents. Forget Kirim, this is the embodiment of a cold shoulder. It's a solid character arc with a pleasant enough outcome. Unfortunately, these days her development has been neglected for the sake of the overall story and focusing on other characters. Weiss isn't really a special snowflake anymore in the world of Remnant, but the fact remains she's still a good ice character. One that I think is worth the number 7 spot on this list. In the year 2000X, robots have advanced significantly. AI and robotic motion have nearly reached a point where they can mimic human thought and movement. It's in this stage where we find the brilliant scientist Dr. Thomas Light. He created his first line of robot masters in an attempt to help mankind in various industrial areas.
We have Fireman, Electman.
I'm hot.
Get out of here! Never again.
Anyways, it was among this first line of robot masters that DLN-005 was created, or as you might know him, Iceman. His design does definitely convey the cold, with an ice blue parka and white boots. His weapon is the Ice Slasher, which has been handy in stopping hazards and creating temporary platforms in Mega Man 1. He's weak to the Thunder Beam of all things. Just goes to show there's more going on underneath the surface than you'd think. He can blast the Ice Slasher from his mouth or use it through his hands to freeze things. His ice is so potent, he can freeze Gutsman with a single breath, a robot who can effortlessly shatter concrete. And in that lousy cartoon from the 80s, Iceman uses it like some kind of Blizzard Kamehameha. But like other robot masters I'll discuss on this channel, the bulk of Iceman's characterization comes from his role in the comics. In the Mega Man books made by Archie Comics, Iceman is defined by his cool head and somewhat snarky attitude. And before you say it, ice wordplay will continue until further notice. Since his battle with Mega Man, he's returned to his original purpose of helping out in the Arctic and Antarctic. His resistance to cold temperatures and ability to manipulate ice has really come in handy there. He also has a crush on Roll, Dr. Light's lab assistant, which I find funny solely because of how oblivious she is. Irritated though he gets, he still helps his brothers and will hang out with them on occasion, except Gutsman. Iceman embodies his element very well in the time that we get to spend with him. Level-headed, cold when the moment calls for it, but still generally a cool guy to be around. Just don't try to interfere with his work. And don't try to put him in a lousy 80s cartoon with the personality of a brick. Please, nobody try to do that again.
If I had a nickel for every time I put an overly edgy character at number 5 on an element list, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
Okay, I know some of you are gonna get up in arms over me putting him this high on the list, but just hear me out. Shoto Todoroki is a pretty interesting guy to unravel. In the first season, he's not given too much focus, only displays of his incredible power giving us a clue that he was a character to keep an eye on. He was so distant and cool, yet coldly shunning any attempt at camaraderie. His full character bio was essentially dumped in our laps in the second season, as he went from neat background character to full-on secondary lead with the likes of Bakugo and Uraraka. Specifically, he's the son of the number 2 hero, later number 1 hero, Endeavor. His old man realized that his own weakness of overheating was too much to overcome, so he arranged a marriage with a woman who held an ice quirk. Now, quirks are inherited, so Endeavor began to have kids until he got the right quirk combination. And after 4 tries, out popped little Shoto. After Shoto's quirk manifested, Endeavor began to borderline abuse and harshly train him so he could become the perfect upgrade to his father. It got so bad that his mother had a mental breakdown and burned her son's face with boiling water, because it reminded her too much of him. I think I may have discovered the world's second reverse Oedipus complex. Dark humor aside, blaming him for everything, Shoto grew a deep hatred for his father and became distant to everyone else, vowing to never use his inherited fire, but instead become a hero with his mother's ice power alone. He can coat objects in ice with barely any effort, like, an entire building? He can freeze things from a distance, create sheets of ice that creep over someone's body absurdly fast, to the point where if he gets even a loose grip, you're stuck there. Even if it's a person, he can freeze you so thoroughly, you shatter if you so much as try to move. He can also use the ice like his own personal Segway. Look out, Paul Blart! Shoto can do it without hands! And now, the move you've all been waiting for, his ultimate attack, Heaven-Piercing Ice Wall. It can erupt with such speed and widespread coverage in the time it takes an average person to flick their finger. In his fight with Deku, Shoto slowly began to mellow out and become more like a cold river than a glacier. He's still aloof and possesses a colder demeanor, but he's more so blunt than trying to be harsh. Shoto's legitimately trying to be friendly and less frigid with others, but let's just say it's a work in progress. He could have gone higher, but his recent display of fire does knock him down a few pegs, and his design doesn't really lean exclusively towards ice. His old costume certainly did, but that didn't stick around for too long. Overall good, just not quite as good as the next batch.
I wanted to. I'll be a hero.
You know something? Blizzards are fast. And I mean insanely fast. They're also a pain to get around in too. Just 5 minutes in an average Canadian snowstorm will tell you exactly what I'm talking about. So what do when you take all that speed and power and bundle it up into a package that vaguely resembles an AC/DC song? You get this guy.
By the way, I'm a boy.
Haku was born in the land of water, but his timing could not have been more lousy. During that time, the ruler of the land was exterminating everyone with a Kekkei Genkai. It's basically a bloodline technique that no one outside of the family can use. Individuals who had such a technique were being hunted because of the fear and destruction such abilities were known to cause. And wouldn't you know it, Haku was one of the unlucky schmucks with the bloodline trait of his clan. As a result, his father tried to kill him while his mother tried to defend him, and this left him as an orphan very early on in life. After this incident, Haku was found by a rogue ninja named Zabuza Momochi. From that day forward, Haku devoted his life to his newfound savior, trying to adopt the older man's nihilistic thought process. Of course, that mindset was a rather cold one, seeing ninja like them as tools, just to be used by their bosses instead of full-fledged people. A short lifetime of assassination missions later solidified that viewpoint, but Haku could never fully rid himself of his kindness. That said, he can certainly suppress it in combat. Haku's Kekkei Genkai was that of the Yuki clan, which not only granted them exceptional control over water, but gave them the power to weaponize ice. He has a couple of unnamed techniques, creating ice spikes that can all but engulf a building, and an ice dome for defense, but the real kicker lies in his ultimate attack.
Secret jutsu! Crystal ice mirrors!
With this, Haku can create multiple, ice mirrors with some unique properties. Aside from looking creepy as all get out when he absorbs into one of them, he can unleash a devastating storm of needles from within that freezing cage. But get this, it may be made of ice, but not even a fireball jutsu can melt it. You know, the jutsu that at this point could burn away a small crater in the ground? He's absurdly fast when using that needle storm move, so you can see why I compared him to a blizzard earlier. He can also affect the weather just by using his power, causing a localized snowfall after the battle. Other characters on this list have gotten a happier turn, but this time though, this tale has a tragic end. Haku, for all his talk about being Zabuza's tool, still retained affection for his mentor, and with his speed, he took an attack meant for the swordsman and died. That was, very abrupt and harsh. What followed was one of the most emotionally impactful scenes I've seen, to the point where I feel no shame in admitting that this 5-minute scene where Zabuza admitted that he cared for Haku and then went on a rampage made me tear up. It seems that even in death, with a soul as pure as the falling snow, he was able to touch the heart of a ruthless man. Haku ranks so high on this list, not solely for his design, but for his power, and how much of an impact he managed to make. Even now, he only slightly loses points on the list due to lacking icy design features, but that can easily be forgiven. Given that even now, a year or two after I ended up watching that fight, the fact that I still remember him so vividly proves that this guy has earned a spot on this list. Rest in peace, Haku.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the part of the show where I must make shall we say, an interesting decision. On one hand, I'll have to revisit a franchise, something that I really didn't want to do. But on the other hand, this particular version of the character, he not only brought two generations of people together that otherwise would likely have never met, he left so many ripples across the world that he inhabited. Not only did he do those two things, not only did he technically resurrect an evil team from beyond whatever point they had of resurrection, but he is one of the most complex and interesting characters I have ever seen from this franchise in the last decade or so. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I now must present to you, as my number 3 pick, the leader of the Mahogany Town Gym, the leader of Neo Team Rocket, the Mask of Ice, Pryce.
If you just play the games, Pryce isn't really all that special.
Don't feel too bad, Pryce. That was my parents' problem with me too.
He's the 7th Johto gym leader, and even with his icy gym layout, his frozen demeanor, and his Pokemon team of Swinub, Jynx, and Piloswine, even though that all screams ice, there's just nothing to make him stand out compared to, say, Bryson of Gen 5. But all of that changed when I read the Pokemon Adventures manga. Since the initial volume of Gold and Silver, there's been this plot by someone simply called the Masked Man, and the plot appeared to revolve around the crowded yet seemingly innocent Ilex Forest. When Gold first ran into him, he wielded a team too powerful for Gold's current level. He defeated the boy soundly, with Gold only surviving the encounter because he walked away. The Masked Man reappeared again at the Lake of Rage, nearly killing Gold and Silver in the ensuing battle. Probably would have if Entei hadn't saved them. It was after this battle that the truth was revealed. Pryce, the Mahogany Town gym leader, was the Mask of Ice, and his depths of evil had been fully revealed. His heart had grown so cold, he not only assembled the remaining Team Rocket members and mind-controlled them en masse to do his bidding, he also kidnapped several children to become his perfect servants, choosing them based on background, gender, and age. But why did he become this way in the first place? Well, during a climactic showdown with Gold, it's revealed that Pryce once owned 2 Lapras. He lost them in an icy chasm, left with their child as the only trace of them. His friends tried to help him, but he wasn't having it. He created an icy body around his wheelchair, one that could stand up to a full team of Pokemon, all controlled by his Swinub. And with that body, he donned the mask and cloak and tried to find a way to control time and bring back his lost Laprases. Laprise? Anyway, he searched for a way to bring him back. And in the end, after the massive battle with Gold's entire team, as well as the other Pokédex holders, he technically succeeded. The baby Lapras was reunited with its parents, but in exchange, Pryce was lost to the void of time, with nothing but the memories of his past left to bring him joy. And with that, he learned a valuable lesson. Cherish the time with those you love. Spend as much time as you can, because you never know when you're going to lose them. Pryce is this high on the list, not purely because of the icy body of his alter ego, not only because of the cold and harsh way he treated others, but because unlike all the other characters on this list, Pryce's ending has a bittersweet feel to it that Pokemon has never really managed to accomplish anywhere else. So it's on that somber note that I must end the entry here and declare that Pryce is the number 3 character on this list.
In a land far, far away lies the kingdom of Fiore. A small, peaceful nation of about 17 million, and a place filled with magic. Shut up, Siegfried! Okay, this is getting dumb. My number 2 pick for this list is Gray Fullbuster of the anime Fairy Tail.
In this land of Fiore, there are as many wonders as there are threats. Demons and dangerous monsters run free, and sadly for one child, this reality would present itself sooner than you'd think. Gray Fullbuster was a fairly normal kid growing up in a pretty normal village, before it was paid a visit by a simply smashing creature, the demon known simply as Deliora. Injured in the wreckage, he was saved by a kindly wizard named Ur and her student Leon. Deciding to raise the boy as her own, Ur began teaching Gray how to use Ice Maker magic. Gray was a quick study, but he did develop a strange habit. You see, since it was ice magic, Ur's training philosophy was to feel the cold in order to be one with it. Normal people would catch hypothermia, but not these 3. But as a result of this training, Gray picked up an odd habit of stripping before a fight, or just out of the blue when the comedy demands it. That aside, Gray eventually caught wind of Deliora again. After seeking it out, he found pretty quickly that he was too weak to take it down. Seeing no other option, Ur cast a spell and sealed Deliora in ice, preventing it from doing any more damage. Afterwards, Gray wandered around until he came to the city of Magnolia, where he joined a lively guild known as Fairy Tail. It was there that he found a new family, and a new rival in the form of fire user Natsu Dragneel. Since then, he's proven he's up to the tasks ahead with his magic. Ice Maker magic is unique from other forms because the caster has complete creative freedom over whatever they want to make. And Gray's quick thinking combined with this magic makes him dangerous. He can summon hammers, swords, paths, flying crescent blades, a stinking bazooka, anything he can think of. From perfect replicas to completely original creations, it's all at his fingertips. He's also something of a weapons expert, and he's equally good at hand-to-hand. Combine this with a quick wit, a strategic mind, and you have the second most intelligent character on this list after Mr. Freeze. On that note, compared to other characters on the list, Gray isn't as cold as much as he is chill. Let me explain that because it sounded better in my head. He's consistently calm, ready for a dose of some nice relaxation and some light mockery when the occasion calls for it.
Man, these are the worst plans ever. What idiot came up with these?
He'll be nice to you, but if you threaten his family, prepare to face the power of a snowstorm. Gray has learned to value his newfound family even more when he met Leon again, when it turned out he was evil now and not only wanted to free Deliora, but kill it once and for all to prove that he had grown to be better than Ur.
Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
When Gray saw what he had inadvertently caused, he tried to use the spell that Ur had used to seal Deliora to seal Leon and himself away, thus eliminating any chance of the demon being resurrected. This spell, known as Iced Shell, uses the caster's body to create a massive icy shell around the target. Luckily, Natsu was there to knock some sense into Gray before he performed a kamikaze. The two may fight, but they're thick as brothers. After beating Leon and watching Deliora crumble away, Gray learned the all-important lesson of cherishing his friends, and letting them help when he's dealing with some heavy stuff. Gray may look more like a beachgoer, but with his friends by his side, there's nothing this frozen fella can't accomplish.
And now that we're almost at the number 1, time for the honorable mentions. Elsa from Frozen. She can summon ice from pretty much nowhere, and she can sometimes give her icy creations life, and she seemingly has no upper limit to her powers. Kind of an obligatory character to mention on a list like this, really, but being brutally honest, I don't like her very much. Sub-Zero. This freezing ninja has been arguably the mascot of Mortal Kombat, and he's been around for quite some time, but really, I'm just not that attached to him. Also, modern Mortal Kombat games... Ugh. Tegan and Harity from the first season of Bakugan. These two managed to freeze the combined world of Aquas and Ventus with their water and wind powers. They really don't have much in way of other ice abilities, though. Plus, Harity just looks like a walking plate of calamari. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about these two. Iceman from the X-Men. I've seen him in the movies, and I thought he was an alright character. I really don't know much about him in the comics, though, and his role in the movies really wasn't all that big when you compare it to someone like, say, Cyclops. So, yeah, honorable mention it is. Chill Penguin from Mega Man X. An icy maverick from the future, but at the same time, I'm really just not that attached to him. It's kind of annoying, honestly. Getten, a villain from My Hero Academia. He can summon water to his side, create ice out of it, and then manipulate that ice. He's really not all that interesting. I mean, his only real defining characteristic is his loyalty to his boss, I guess, Reed Estro. But he's really just not all that interesting. And finally, the Wampa from Star Wars. I'll talk about Star Wars eventually, but just look at it. It's just a Yeti! Alright, enough of the honorable mentions, time to get to number 1. So, for my number 1 character, you take Mr. Freeze, erase all the techie stuff from him, and while we're at it, give him a normal skin tone, put him in Iceman's parka, and what do we got? We got my favorite ice character, Captain Cold.
Setting the world on fire with these names today, huh? Leonard Snart didn't have a particularly happy childhood. What with having an abusive father and all. His dad was a crook, who was also a drunk, abusing Leonard and his sister Lisa.
Shockingly enough, being raised by an abusive ex-con of a father doesn't really lead to a healthy childhood.
His father instilled on him one perceived fact about life. Emotion was weakness, and a cold heart was the only way to make it further in life. As he grew up, Leonard took this lesson to heart, as he became a notorious criminal. However, Leonard made a mistake, and that was being a criminal in the world of DC Comics. It wasn't long before he was thwarted by the Flash. After he was released from prison, Snart began researching ways to counter the Flash's speed. Using some stolen tech, along with the Cyclotron, theorized to mess with the Scarlet Speedster's speed, he whipped up his trusty cold gun. The cold gun was used to the fullest extent of a man with a clear and cold head. Not only blasting things with cold, making even steel brittle and weak, but he can freeze you solid, create icy hazards to send his foes sliding out of control, or even just create a whole lot of ice. But Snart's ice is unique compared to other entries. His cold gun doesn't just create ice, it can slow you down on an atomic level. He can freeze you so thoroughly not even your protons and neutrons are able to move. This gun, combined with good marksmanship and the reflexes of an experienced sniper, makes him a theoretical perfect counter to the Flash. But in the New 52 comics, after experiencing a few defeats, Snart was approached by Dr. Darwin Elias with an offer of power. After some genetic tinkering with the gun, Captain Cold truly began to live up to his name, busting out some cryokinesis. And with this handy upgrade, not only did he not have to worry about carrying a gun everywhere, but he could just create icy cliffs just like that, encase his fists in ice, and blast Cold so strong that it can rival Speed Force lightning. In the Flash show, Captain Cold debuted as early as Season 1, establishing himself as a calm, cold, and sarcastic mastermind, making him one of the Flash's most dangerous villains.
I hung off his every word, and I was captivated by what.
2 hours later.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing, but Wentworth!
6.5 hours later.
I'm sorry. I just was not expecting that. I was not expecting that. You don't see the name Wentworth that many places anymore, but okay. Back on track for a moment, ladies and germs. Back on track.
He's so fun in that show for how intimidating, yet how much of a smart aleck he is. Despite all his villainous ways, Snart works by a code. Only robberies, and no innocent bystanders get hurt. He sees himself as a blue-collar type of criminal, just viewing robberies as his day job. But he always avoids hurting innocent people or putting them in harm's way. He holds it so strictly that he and his group, the Rogues, have even teamed up with heroes on occasion to keep civilians safe and protect their city. In Snart's appearances in Flash Season 2, there have been pieces of that showing through here and there. Who knows, one day he may even become a hero. He outright became Flash's partner in his Injustice 2 ending, so he definitely has it in him. So despite everything the world has thrown at him, Snart has managed to retain that little bit of good, so there might be hope for him yet.
Now, some of you may see Cold as kind of a cop-out since I did DC twice, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Share this video around if you like. Give this video a like. And yeah, that's all I've got for today. So, ladies and germs, this has been M from the Green Screen. Have a nice day, everybody.